Reading with your kids.
Hey, so great to see you. Come on in. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast, and iTunes #1 kids and family podcast. And we've been nominated for the iHeart Radio Best Kids and Family Podcast. Thanks to you. Thanks for all of your support. We really appreciate it. We have a wonderful show for you today. Our guest is the author of the Izzy Elves series of Christmas books. Her name is Dorothea Jensen. You know, as we welcome Dorothea to the Reading with Your Kids podcast, we are reminded that the holidays, that Christmas is right around the corner. And if you are still looking for that perfect gift for the curious kids in your life, look no further than littlepassports.com/reading. littlepassports.com/reading. Because Little Passports is a perfect holiday gift for curious kids of all ages. Little Passports delivers fun-filled packages right to their door every single month with engaging hands-on activities, interactive projects, and unique souvenirs just waiting to be discovered. Little Passport's monthly subscriptions are designed to spark children's curiosity about geography, world culture, or science. From exploring sea creatures in Costa Rica to building a Big Ben like the one in England or making an ancient Greek headpiece, every month is a different adventure that will fuel their imagination, spark their natural curiosity of the world around them. It's the perfect gift for kids ages 3 to 13 this holiday season. Order today for holiday delivery at littlepassports.com/reading. That's littlepassports.com/reading. We also want to mention that we have a brand new Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read. That's right, a new Certified Great Read by Andy Gutman. The name of his book is Even. Even is written in a lyrical style amidst vibrant illustrations. Even offers a sweet lesson in the eternal love and strong bond between a father and his daughter. You know, it's not easy for parents to say goodbye to their children when they leave for work each day. The hardworking modern-day father at the center of the story is no exception. When father and daughter are apart, their thoughts are never far from each other. This pair knows the truth in their hearts that their relationship is special. As young daughter at the center of the story grows and her life changes, her father wants her to know that she will never be alone. Though he may not always be there physically, her father will always be present by her side to provide love and support. You know, we here at the Reading with Your Kids podcast, our entire evaluation team absolutely loved Even by Andy Gutman. Make sure you check it out. It's our latest Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read, Even by Andy Gutman. Joining us right now on the line from Kentucky in beautiful New Hampshire. She is a wonderful author. She was here before telling us about her historical fiction, and now she's here telling us about some great Christmas books. Please welcome back to the show, Dorothea Jensen. Dorothea, how are you?
I'm good. I don't feel very Christmassy yet, but I'm working on it.
Well, you know, sometimes it's hard to get in the Christmas spirit. We're recording this in early November. You folks are listening to it a little bit later in the season, a little bit closer to Christmas, and hopefully you might be in a more of the Christmas mood. But if you're not feeling Christmas right now, you will be feeling it in the next few minutes, because Dorothy is going to tell us about her wonderful kidlit series called the Izzy Elves stories.
That's right.
Yeah. So, as I understand it, there are four titles in the series right now, and they all revolve around, some Izzy Elves, Tizzy, Blizzy, Dizzy, and Frizzy.
That's right.
So why don't we take them, since we're talking about all four of them, why don't we take them, one at a time? Start at book one. Tell us what that's all about.
Well, I have to start by saying where this idea came from in the first place. And it came from when I was 4 years old. And my father was a doctor, and he was called out on a home call on Christmas morning. And when he came back, he decided he would turn on the Christmas tree lights so that when the children came downstairs, they'd already be on, and we'd all think that Santa had done it or whatever. And he went under the tree to plug it in, and it crashed. It fell over with a crash. And I was upstairs. I was 4 years old, and I heard this crash, and I immediately thought, oh, we've trapped Santa in our living room. So I leaped out of bed, and my younger sisters leaped out of bed, and we went running down the hallway. And my brother, who was 1 year older than me, just 1 year older than me, stood at the top of the stairs and said, you can't go down there. And I don't know exactly why he did that, but I was so frustrated. And I think as I was growing up, I always remembered the excitement of the idea of having Santa or some other elf trapped in the living room. So 40 years later, I wrote a story poem about it. And these are all modeled on 'Twas the Night Before Christmas, Went All Through the House, that kind of thing. And so I wrote Tizzy. Tizzy is the name of the elf who is stranded. He's packed by mistake inside a bookshelf full of books, which is the big Christmas present Santa is bringing him. And he is delivered to the home of two of my grandsons, Owen and Alex. And they sneak down. They're very naughty. They sneak downstairs before they're supposed to, before their parents are up. And they find an elf is in their living room. And he's very upset. He's, I think you could say, in a tizzy, which is where the name came from. And because he's in such a tizzy, he wants to get back to the North Pole in time for the big celebration that always takes place when Santa gets back with his sleigh after he's delivered all the presents. So anyway, he says that Santa's sleigh is energized, runs on the power of children's imaginations. And so he says, now, can't you please use your imaginations to get me back to the pole? So that's what the book is about, is how they try various things to try and get him home in time for the big party. Won't tell you what happens.
That's part of the beauty of the books. That's great. You know, that story about your dad knocking the Christmas tree over on him, it reminds me, the first Christmas my wife and I celebrated together as husband and wife. One of the gifts that she bought me was a Sony Walkman, one of those old portable tape players. And I had it on and I had the music blaring. We were cleaning up after Christmas and we're putting different things away. So I was in another room and I had the headphones on and the music blaring. And my wife was vacuuming up all the pine needles that had fallen. And she hit the tree and she knocked the tree over, trapping herself underneath the tree. And she was calling out for me to help her, but I couldn't hear her because I had the headphones on that she had bought me and that I loved so much. And then I came in and I found her. I think it was a couple of minutes later, but she acted like it was like hours later.
And you're still married, right?
I am. Yes, we're coming up on 29 years. Don't tell her I said that. That's the only reason we've been together for so long, that no one else has heard that story. So.
Well, we just had our 51st, so we've had many Christmases together.
That is wonderful. Congratulations. You know, before we talk about the other books, what other authors do you think influenced your verse? Because your writing in verse is very different than the historical novels that you told us about on your last visit.
Yes, a Bus from Lafayette and The Riddle of Pencroft Farm are not in verse. But I think, of course, Dr. Seuss. I loved Dr. Seuss as a child and probably have most of the books memorized almost. And I always thought of myself as sort of imitating or writing in the vein of Dr. Seuss. But then I started reading Shel Silverstein, and I think in some ways my work is more like his. For one thing, it's longer, but although he doesn't have long poems, but I think in the way that it entertains both children and adults, is what I tried to do anyway. And of course, Clement Moore, who wrote 'Twas the Night Before Christmas, A Visit from St. Nicholas. And all of my elf books start out with something that echoes the beginning. 'Twas the night before Christmas when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. I use the rhyme scheme and the structure of that poem, but I make it 21st century. My Izzy Elves are definitely 21st century critters. They use computers, they use tablets, they use GPS, you name it, and they're masters of it. Now Santa has a bit of a trouble with it himself, and he's always having to ask the elves for help. That is sort of what is going on in these poems. I can't remember what the original question was, Jed.
No. We were just talking about the authors that had influenced you, and also you started. One of the things I wanted to ask you was what challenges did you experience writing in verse as opposed to writing the historical fiction?
Well, of course, for my historical fiction, Bust from Lafayette and Riddle of Pencroft Farm, it took me years, literally years to do the research because, of course, you have to know what really happened before you can make up a story of something that could have happened and fit it in that network. Whereas writing the poetry, obviously, the big challenge there is the rhymes, but the rest of it just comes straight out of my imagination, and I don't really need to do much research for it. Although I do have to tell you that my oldest grandson, whose name is Stuart, I once overheard him very seriously explaining to his younger brother that Grandma has elves that live in her head and tell her what to write down. And it always seemed to me that maybe I do.
Yeah, well, out of the mouths of babes sometimes,
Yeah.
Well, if there are elves inside your head, I guess maybe that was where, the elves kind of inspired you to come up with the Izzy Elves names.
Yeah. Well, I started out with Tizzy because, of course, he's very upset at being mistakenly transported to the home of these children. And so he's in a tizzy, and that's why I named him Tizzy. I don't ever actually say he's in a tizzy, but I thought Tizzy sort of established that he was an excitable kind of overwrought elf. And then at the beginning of the story, he starts telling the boys about the other elves. There are 7 other Izzy Elves. And I have to tell you that what I did is I just went through the alphabet with Izzy to see what made a meaningful name for an elf. And I was amazed at how many I found. There's Busy, and he bosses or tries to boss everybody around. And Blizzy, who makes the snow globes. And Fizzy and Dizzy make toys that surprise, like Jacks in the Box, those things. Frizzy cuts and curls the Christmas doll's hair. Whizzy wraps all the presents, and he's always in a hurry. I figure that he's always in a hurry because he has to wait till everybody else finishes making the presents before he wraps them. So it is figured out that he is the one that accidentally wrapped Tizzy inside this big present. He didn't do it on purpose, and Tizzy doesn't hold a grudge, but still. And the last one is Quizzy, and she makes puzzles and games. So once I did that, once I came up with those names and figured out what these elves did, I just felt compelled to write more stories about them. So that's how it all happened.
Cool. So I'm guessing you didn't set out to create a series when you wrote the first one.
No, I was just writing the Tizzy story, and then one thing led to another, and so now I've done Tizzy, Blizzy, Dizzy, and Frizzy, and I'm hastened to add they've all won awards of some kind or another, which is very gratifying. Let's see, who do I have left? I wrote it down because it's sometimes hard to remember. I've got Quizzy, Wizzy, Fizzy, and Busy. Those are the ones I have left to work on. Yes.
Well, I know, it really caught my eye that you named one of the elves Blizzy. We had a really fun experience when my daughter was 5, and my kids always came to the magic shop with me. When I went in to get new props for my educational magic shows, and they loved it, and the people at the shops loved the kids, and they knew them, but they didn't always know their names. And we were away one weekend around Christmas time, and talking with my kids. We always like to share stories about when they were growing up, and we'd always tell the story at Christmas time of how my daughter was born between like 3 storms. It was really incredible time. And so she said, "You should have called me Blizzy." And we had a laugh. But that night, a friend of mine was at the resort, and he was putting on a magic show, and we were very, very surprised to see that. And we loved this guy, and the kids knew him, and he knew them. And so we went down to the function room at the hotel, and sat right up front. And my friend the magician started his show and brought my daughter up on stage, I think as a thank you to me and a nod to me. And he brought her up on stage and said, "Hey, what's your name?" And she said, "Blizzy." And it completely knocked him off, because he knew that she had an unusual name. Her name's Alejandra, but he didn't think it was Blizzy. And I felt really bad for him, because he was really shaken. I mean, his concentration was, he got it back, and he put on a great show, but he was really, he just was like, just crazy. Speaking of crazy, I don't think it's crazy. It's fun. These books are fun, but they're not crazy. I think they have some great stories and some great conversations that can happen between families when they're reading these books. What kind of conversations do you envision families having as they're reading the Izzy Elves series? Dorothea will be back to share her thoughts about the conversations we can have while reading Izzy Elves with our kids. And, this is a theme that I repeat often here on the podcast, this idea of conversations. And I do think conversations, it's what our relationships with our kids are all about. And books are such a great way to stimulate that conversation. And curiosity is also a wonderful way to stimulate conversations between our kids. And one of the ways that we can ignite our kids' curiosity is with a fantastic gift. A gift that keeps on giving all year long. A gift of Little Passports. Little Passports is the perfect holiday gift for curious kids of all ages. Little Passports delivers fun-filled packages right to their door every month, with engaging hands-on activities, interactive projects, and unique souvenirs just waiting to be discovered. Little Passport's monthly subscriptions are designed to spark children's curiosity about geography, world cultures, or science. From exploring sea creatures in Costa Rica to building a Big Ben like the one in England, or making an ancient Greek headpiece. Every month is a different adventure that will fuel their imagination and spark their natural curiosity of the world around them. It's the perfect gift for kids ages 3 to 13 this holiday season. Order yours today for holiday delivery at littlepassports.com/reading. That's right. Order today for holiday delivery at littlepassports.com/reading. What kind of conversations do you envision families having as they're reading the Izzy Elves series?
Well, I've never thought about that. I can only tell you that laughter is involved. Because I think that one of the things that's good about the book, and I do this deliberately, is that they entertain grown-ups just as much as they do kids. And I've had fathers tell me that they love reading these books. They really are very grateful for books that they can read 40 times and not get bored with. So that to me is a very high kudo. Let's see. I think that in the Blizzy book is about Tizzy's girlfriend who notices that he's missing. Of course, we all know where he is. He is at he is at Owen and Alex's house, but she notices he's missing, and she goes around to try and figure out what happened to him. And she interviews all the other elves, and every one of them says to her, "Oh, don't be a worrywart." So I think one of the little, it's not really a lesson, but one of the things people could talk about is calling people names, and not taking the time to understand their point of view and why are they doing what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And mm-hmm. I think that's probably a good thing to talk about. I have put my grandsons in 2 of the 4 books, mm-hmm. and 2 sets of brothers. And what happened is that recently, after I wrote these books, my daughter had twin boys, and I've been waiting to see if they were going to notice that there was no book that they were in. And this last time I saw them, oh my goodness, they have discovered it. And now every single time I talk on the phone, they say, "Is my book done yet?" So they kind of think it's going to just pop out. I don't know quite. I don't think they have much of a concept of what is involved. But anyway, it's I don't know. Can't remember your question. Sorry. I guess, yeah.
Well, you answered it. And I think you just have to tell those elves inside your head to get cracking. You know, the grandsons want some new books out there.
Right. That is so true.
So I love that you're, that the books are accessible for all ages. And it sounds like you're written primarily for younger kids. What age do you think that you were envisioning would most enjoy these when you're writing?
Well, I think these are really for school age kids. I think that I was envisioning families sitting down with their kids who were, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. Although even older kids, I think, could get a kick out of them. Mm-hmm. And reading aloud to the kids. And they do have pictures, so younger kids, I have had responses from people who, as young as 3, parents of kids as young as 3 who have sat there through the entire reading, and these are not short books. I mean, they usually take somewhere between 15 minutes and 25 minutes to read them aloud. Mm-hmm. Although I also can save people the labor of doing that because I made recordings for audiobooks that can be downloaded from Amazon and Audible. And that was a lot of fun because I just pretended I was reading them to my grandchildren, and it was easy as pie. So
that's awesome.
So anyway, these are not strictly speaking for toddlers, these mm-hmm. books. They are aimed at kids like 5 and up. So
yeah, the language in it it's very accessible, but it's not simple. It's definitely going to capture the attention of that school age crowd, and also I agree. It's fun for the adults too, and the situations that you present are really fun and funny.
Well, I just hope I don't get in trouble because in 2 of my books, I've got some very naughty children who happen to be my grandsons. But I think the kids get a big kick out of that, and the parents probably do too. And as I say, I do have 2 more grandsons to work into a story. It's going to be the one about Busy. Busy. Mm-hmm. I'm going to call it Busy the Bossy Boots Elf. And originally it was Blizzy the Know-It-All Elf, but my illustrator, whose name is Shane Hood, said, "I think you ought to call him Bossy Boots." And I looked up Bossy Boots, which I had never heard before, and found out that it pretty much means the know-it-all, a know-it-all elf. So I think that's what's going to be next. Awesome. And it's going to be about the elves going on vacation. They're sick to death of being in snow and ice, and so they have to find a place where they can go on vacation and not stick out in the crowd. And believe it or not, they find a place like that. So,
well, I can't wait to find out where they go. Tell us.
I can't wait either.
Tell us what other kind of reactions that you've received from parents or kids that have read the books.
Well, one of the ones that I liked the most was someone who wrote and said that he has a 7-year-old son who hates to read. and that when this book arrived at that house, this child who, quote, hates to read, sat down and read through it cover to cover all on his own. And to me, that was like the most thrilling thing I had heard so far about how people feel about my books. Yeah. If I can get a 7-year-old who hates to read my books, then I think I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah, as an author, that must be incredibly gratifying to hear.
Oh, totally, yes. Well, you know, the thing is about being an author is that most of the time you're sitting alone in a room. Mm-hmm. And it's not that often you actually are able to talk to children and get these reactions like this one. Of course, this was indirect because the father told it to me. But that's one of the reasons that I've started doing free video visits to classrooms where the kids have read or had read to them my historical fiction. Mm-hmm. And it's really fun. I beam in. Yeah. I beam in and answer their questions. And that is one of the most fun things I do because I get to meet the kids, you know?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, I want folks to be able to find out more about the Izzy Elves books and also about your two historical fiction books that we've mentioned. And also just to get to know you, too. You have a great website. Tell folks a little bit about the website and where they can find it, please.
Well, first of all, I need to tell you that I am the first of the baby boomers. I am 72 years old. Oof. And let me tell you, it's not easy to learn to do all these things, but I have figured out with the help of my grown children, of course, you know, I've done blogging, I've done Pinterest, I've done video visits. The Izzy Elves have their own blog, by the way.
Oh, cool.
My son said, you should let the Izzy Elves speak for themselves. So that is the most fun to write of all because they're always jealous of each other. I mean, they love each other, but they're always a little jealous. They're mostly jealous of my historical fiction. And they feel as if I overlook them. So, when I told them that I was going to do this podcast, about them, they would, you know, their reaction was, well, it's about time, you know, that kind of thing.
I agree.
They're a nice group, really. So, my website. Okay. So, I'm trying to think. My website is DorotheaJensen.com with some W's in the front of it.
Yep.
And, that's DorotheaJensen. And, my main name was Johnson, by the way. And, one of the things that I went back and listened to the podcast we did together last year. Uh-huh. And at one point, you accidentally talked about me as being named Dorothea Johnson, and I got a big kick out of it instead of Jensen, and I got a big kick out of it because, of course, that was my name for many years, Johnson. Wow. So I just changed the vowels when I got married, really. So.
Well, that is the story of my life. I'm always making mistakes, but somehow making mistakes in the right way.
Yes. Well, that's, you know, people ask me how on earth, I've had something like, I would say by now it's probably getting close to 200,000 hits on various things I do. I have there's a wonderful website called publish.com that authors can select little bits of their books and then write about why they wrote it that way or what does it refer to or where they got the idea from in the first place. And I've done quite a bit of elf stuff on that website. And that's where I had most of the hits actually. But I've gotten a lot on blogs and other things. But, what was I just saying? Okay. Oh, nope. Oh, my friends, of course, who are all my age are, you know, up to 10 years older, and that's pretty high. Mm-hmm. They all think I'm this genius because I know how to do all this stuff on the internet. And my kids kind of, when I tell them that, they say, oh, well, you know, that's not true because, because they know how elementary all of this is. And people ask me, how did you learn to do that at your age? I said, well, I've moved, I don't know, 20 times in my life. And the way I get to know new places is by getting hopelessly lost. And then I find my way back. And that's how I learn about where I lived at that time. And the same thing is true of the internet and the websites, and I just try it and see what happens. And it is really fun to see who reads your stuff.
So, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and
well, we're real excited. I think everybody, if you're not in the Christmas spirit yet, you have to get in the Christmas spirit and check out the 4 Izzy Elves stories. Now, they are there. You can buy them through DorotheaJensen.com, not Johnson. DorotheaJensen.com.
Yeah.
And they're also, and you said that the books are also available on Amazon, and also the audio books are available at Audible.com.
That's right. All 4 of them are. I also did an audiobook of Bus from Lafayette, by the way, which, needless to say, took a lot longer than doing these elf stories.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I used to be an actress many years ago, and I find that the odd thing is I'm using a lot of skills that I haven't used in 30 years, and one of them is sort of acting out or reading all of these stories, and I'm finding that it's great fun. It's great fun, and I never would have predicted I'd be doing something like this at this point in my life.
Well, the wonderful thing about the point in my life that I'm at, which isn't all that much younger than you, is that, the more you keep doing, the more you keep learning, the more alive you are.
Right. I remember when I wrote my first historical novel, The Riddle of Pencroft Farm, which has been in print almost 30 years now. I named one of the characters in there after my 8th grade teacher, Mrs. Hetrick, and I sent a copy of it to her, and I had a lot of archaic terms that I used in the book. And at the time that she read it, she was 99 years old. Wow. And she wrote me a letter, and she said, "Oh, I learned so much. It was wonderful." I thought, wow, if she's still learning at 99, maybe that's why she's lived as long as she has.
Absolutely. And I think that is a great lesson for everyone, and especially our kids, to encourage them to do, and that's one of the wonderful things about reading with our kids, is it really is helps them develop a love of reading, a love of learning, and if they can turn that into a lifelong love of learning, then they're in for a really happy and hopefully long life.
Yes.
Yes.
I can't make any promises that you'll live longer if you read my books, but why don't you try it?
There you go. Absolutely. Check out the books. It's the 4 Izzy Elves stories, available at DorotheaJensen.com, at Amazon.com, also at Audible. And if you go to audibletrial.com/respect and sign up for Audible's free 30-day trial membership, you can download one of those books absolutely for free. No risk at all. That's it's sort of their way to help support the podcast. Our guest today has been Dorothea Jensen. Dorothea, thank you so much. It's so lovely speaking to you again today.
Well, thank you for having me, and let me be the first to wish you Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Merry Christmas. You do not want to miss the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be 9-year-old author Emily Bastian. She is going to be here. What an incredible young woman. You are going to be incredibly impressed, just like I was, listening to this really, really bright, really curious and engaging young woman. Yeah, I know I've said it before. I love speaking to young people. I love speaking to young authors. I love speaking to young people who have this energy and curiosity about the world. They're so engaged. They're not glued to their screens. They're kind of wide-eyed. They're looking around, seeing what they can see. And that's one of the reasons we're so happy that Little Passports is a sponsor of the show this month. I mean, Little Passports is the perfect holiday gift for that curious kid on your list. With the subscription to Little Passports, kids get a fun-filled package each month designed to inspire their curiosity in geography, world cultures, or science. For kids of all ages, order today for holiday delivery at littlepassports.com/reading, littlepassports.com/reading. We want to thank We want to thank Dorothea Jensen for being here today. Of course, we want to thank Little Passports for being our sponsor. And absolutely 100%, we want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very, very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.